For people around the world, journalists are the eyes and ears of war. They enter places where most of us can never go, documenting destruction, interviewing survivors, and revealing what is happening on the ground. But in modern conflicts, journalists themselves often become victims. One of the most controversial and widely debated examples is the high number of journalists killed during the Israel-Gaza conflict. Since the war intensified, international media organizations, press freedom groups, and human rights organizations have reported the deaths of numerous journalists and media workers. Many of these journalists were covering airstrikes, documenting civilian casualties, or reporting from areas close to active combat zones. Their deaths have sparked global concern and raised difficult questions about the safety of reporters in war zones. Critics argue that some journalists were killed by Israeli military actions, including airstrikes that struck buildings, vehicles, or locations where media personnel were present. Press freedom organizations have called for independent investigations into several incidents, claiming that journalists should be protected under international law and should never be targeted because of their work. Families of victims and media groups have demanded accountability, saying that the truth can only emerge through transparent investigations. Israel, however, has repeatedly stated that it does not intentionally target journalists. Israeli officials argue that military operations are aimed at armed groups and military targets, not members of the press. They also point out that combat in densely populated urban areas creates complex and dangerous conditions, where civilians, aid workers, and journalists can be caught in the crossfire. In some cases, Israeli authorities have disputed accusations and maintained that investigations are necessary before drawing conclusions. The debate became even more intense after several high-profile journalist deaths attracted international attention. These incidents led to calls from governments, media organizations, and human rights advocates for greater protection of reporters working in conflict zones. Questions emerged about whether sufficient precautions were taken, whether warnings were issued, and whether international standards were followed. What makes this issue especially significant is the role journalists play during war. Without reporters on the ground, the world has fewer ways to verify claims, document events, and understand the human impact of conflict. When journalists are killed, injured, or prevented from reporting, access to independent information becomes more limited. The danger is not unique to one conflict. Throughout history, journalists have been killed in wars across the world, from the Middle East to Eastern Europe and beyond. Yet the scale of concern surrounding journalist deaths in Gaza has made it one of the most discussed press freedom issues of recent years. As the conflict continues, international organizations keep calling for thorough investigations into every journalist death. Supporters of these efforts argue that accountability is essential not only for justice, but also for protecting future reporters. Whether one views these deaths as tragic consequences of war or evidence of deeper problems, one fact remains clear: journalism becomes far more dangerous when the people reporting the story become part of the story themselves.